same vein is another kind of question about relationships. This one comes from Elizabeth. She asks, how can my colleagues and I work together to keep celebrating and digging deeper into why we teach?
I think sometimes you just have to make the celebrations a habit and make sure, because there's so many times, especially this time of year, that we forget to celebrate and we let the stresses get us down and we're trying to keep our head above water. But I know that in one district I taught in, we had meaningful Mondays, and we met every Monday and we celebrated something about the week before. And it was just such a powerful moment because we did this at the end of the day on Monday. So when do you need more encouragement than the end of the day on a Monday?
Exactly.
And you were celebrating something from the previous week, and it just started your week off in such a positive fashion. And then throughout the week, you were constantly reflecting on things in your room of amazing things going on so that you knew what you were going to share that following week. And so I think just making a habit of it, and not just one of those celebrations at the top of a meeting agenda and does anybody have any celebrations, but holding everyone accountable to finding something positive that's going on.
I totally agree. I had this colleague this fall who did the coolest thing. His name is Michael Barta, and he is one of the business teachers at my high school. And he asked his students to just write little notes to teachers. And then he would go put the notes in their mailboxes. And it was like the coolest thing. I mean, it's so awesome to just go down there. I mean, and it's great to hear it from your colleagues, but you know, there is nothing better than getting a note from a student. And, you know, and it was just so neat that, and he did this on a couple of occasions where he just give kids really scrap pieces of paper. It was nothing fancy. But whatever they said, I know it totally made my week. So I know it must have been putting smiles on teachers' faces all over the building.
That's like getting 5 stars on a customer satisfaction survey. We wouldn't want to hear those things from our students.
I know, exactly.
I love that idea.
Yeah, so really cool things. And I have no doubt that there are people right now in our chat column putting all of their great ideas for you know, thinking about ways to celebrate each other and to elevate, you know, the colleagues around us. I also really like the second part of this question. So the first part was about celebrating, and the second part was about how do we keep digging deeper. And I thought it was interesting that Elizabeth asked those two kind of questions together, almost as though it's really hard to dig deeper unless you're celebrating at the same time.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I think, you know, this idea of digging deeper, I think it goes back to making sure that we are not in isolation, right? So I think part of the reason that you can fall out of love with teaching is because you don't get these two things. You don't get those just little positive high fives, right? Those affirmations. You don't get that chance to be a learner with your colleague. And so finding those ways to open up our doors, literally and figuratively, to get out of isolation, I think that just becomes really important in figuring out how to dig deeper.
And I think when I found Twitter, I found my tribe and I found my group of people. And I feel like every single time I get on there, I grow. And so I can't even imagine going back to the old way of life and teaching before that. And so I think that things like that help me to dig deeper.
Okay, so I have to ask you more about that, because I know that there are lots of teachers, of course, who are on Twitter, and there are probably just as many teachers who are kind of like, that sounds interesting, but I'm not really sure why I would want to do that, why I would want to put a sentence in, too few characters. So maybe talk a little bit about how that community has really helped you sustain your love for teaching.
Well, first off, I was Facebook. I was all about Facebook. I wasn't going to join Twitter. It was just another thing to keep track of. And when I first joined it, I hated it. I just didn't think it was very user friendly, and I didn't know who to follow. And once I found who to follow, and I got involved in some chats, it was just unbelievable, the amount of learning and sharing. And I just love how open everyone is. Like, it's like everyone opens the doors to their classrooms and invites everyone in. And it's not this me against the world, and it's
Right.
us doing what's best for kids. And
Yeah.
so there's teachers I collaborate with throughout the country that I've never even met, but I've gotten some outstanding ideas from them and used them in my own classroom. And so I just absolutely love Twitter.
That's awesome. Which, of course, Love Teaching started as a Twitter hashtag. So the thing that we're here celebrating,
Yes.
has its origin story on Twitter as well. And then, of course, like the teacher to teacher community is all over there. And we, know that everybody here is just so willing to be open and to share and to do all of those kinds of things.
Yes, and they're definitely one of my favorite ones to follow. It seems like everything that they share is so timely and so relevant, and I just appreciate all the sharing that happens on under their feeds too.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you in just a second if you have a couple of people that you think, should get, if there are a few people that you think people could start following, that might be cool. And while you're thinking about that, I'm just going to shout out here to Wendy, who has kind of given us the virtual high five about finding lots of inspiration on Twitter. Shelly loves your idea about Meaningful Mondays and thinking about the ways that really gives people the ability to reflect. And then, of course, we're saying hi to all kinds of people. Diane from San Jose. So I don't know, Darby, what do you think? Do you have a couple people that would be great for folks to start following?
Yes, I follow Mike Soskell, who is the Pennsylvania Teacher of the Year, and I followed him before his journey of Pennsylvania Teacher of the Year started, and he just does such an outstanding job of creating global citizens. And so I've enjoyed everything that he's had to share and learning from him. Matt Miller, who's the author of Ditch That Textbook, is outstanding, along with Alice Keeler. Anything Google related, she's your gal, and so is Casey Bell. And so I like to integrate a lot of technology. So those are two people. I'm a math teacher, so Joe Bowler is definitely one of my inspirations. And Joe Bowler and Mashup Math do a lot of great mathematical mindset things. George Kuros and innovation, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's great again that you're just it's people who write books, it's people who are in the classroom. Like there isn't a hierarchy, and that's one of those things that I think continues to help to kind of reduce those walls.
And I think the first thing to do is to find your content area chat or your grade level chat and get involved there, and the resources that they share there and the connections you make, and they let you